Well, podcaster Emily Hanks did a video. She kind of like dove into some stuff from PK's past, talking about his previous marriages, how many of his kids he actually sees, like some of the things Dorit said about him as a dad.
Okay, yeah, so definitely some personal stuff.
Totally. And then she got into some of his, past money troubles.
Right, like the bankruptcies and the gambling debts.
Exactly. And even brought up their house being in pre-foreclosure. So yeah, she didn't hold back.
Whoa, okay. So I'm guessing PK probably wasn't.
You guessed it. He slid right into her Instagram DMs with quite the response.
So that's what we're talking about in this video, those messages.
Totally. I mean, this is like a front row seat to his side of the whole thing.
Right. How he responds to all those claims, what he pushes back on, and just like his whole perspective.
Exactly. And then, of course, how Emily handles it all. So let's get into his first message. Right off the bat, he's like, hold up, you got this wrong.
Oh, what was it?
The length of his first marriage. He's adamant it was 20 years, not 9, like Emily said.
Okay. And that's a pretty big difference.
Right. Then he jumps to the foreclosure thing. He's like, never had a house foreclosed upon ever. Like really emphasizing that ever.
He's like, I know what I'm talking about. That never happened.
Totally. But then, he kind of gets into the stuff about his kids. He says he's super close with all my children. And then he specifically mentions his 3 older ones. And he gets really upset about Emily using like old pictures of his kids on her blog. He even calls it disgusting and demands she take them down.
Yeah, I can see why a parent would be sensitive about that, especially if you're trying to keep them out of the spotlight.
Right. And then he doesn't hold back on Emily, straight up accuses her of, lying for clicks and money. Even says like, oh, I bet you won't even post this message because then everyone would know you're just talking trash.
Wow. So he thinks she's just trying to create drama for attention?
Pretty much. And then he adds, she clearly doesn't care about his kids.
So what did Emily do? Did she post it?
Oh, she totally posted it. And, she had her own things to say back to him. Right off the bat, she mentions like, hey, maybe not the best idea to be sending these messages super late at night.
Okay, so maybe hinting that he wasn't exactly thinking clearly.
Right, exactly. But then she does agree, okay, I'll correct the length of your first marriage.
So at least there's some common ground there.
Totally. Right. But then she's like, I never said your house was foreclosed, just in pre-foreclosure, which is exactly what I said in the video. But then, this is interesting, she points out how PK went on and on about being close with his older kid. But she's like, isn't it kind of interesting because right now, your younger kids are with you in LA while you're separated from Dorit.
Yeah.
Like maybe your attention should be on the kids who are actually with you at this moment. And then she finishes by asking if he sends these kinds of messages to other content creators.
So she's implying that this isn't a one-off, like maybe he does this all the time.
Exactly.
Wow, okay. And this is just his first message.
Oh no, he comes back with a second one.
I'll bet this is juicy.
Right. So he starts by saying, look, 4 of my kids are in LA, 1's studying in Rio, and then he tells Emily straight up, stay away from my kids, full stop.
Whoa, that's intense.
And then he says her content is like designed to defame.
So he's really taking issue with how she's portraying him.
Totally. But then he's like, look, it goes without saying I'm close with my younger kids too. He really goes off. He says she's lucky he even bothered to message her because everything you said was made up. And then, this is the kicker, he says, keep writing and posting about my family and you'll see how lucky you get.
Oh, that sounds like a threat.
Yeah, and that's exactly how Emily took it. And honestly, you can see why. It's like, whoa, what are you going to do?
Right, like where's that coming from?
Exactly. And then he throws in that whole, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen thing. And he calls her not a content creator, you're a liar who posts what she wants behind a filter.
Okay, so he's like really coming at her character now.
Yeah, he ends by saying, a father will do anything to protect his children from harm. From what we're seeing and hearing, it doesn't seem like Teresa's exactly breaking a sweat over these new tax issues.
That's what's got everyone buzzing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a hefty chunk of change here.
Oh, yeah. Nearly $304,000 in back taxes for her and Luis together. And then on top of that, Luis is facing this separate lien for over $2.5 million.
Wow. It makes you think about those rumors that were swirling around before the wedding about Luis's financial past. You know, the lawsuits, the allegations, all that.
Absolutely. And you have to remember, too, apparently there's no prenup. So all those concerns people had about Teresa potentially getting caught up in more financial trouble, well, those concerns are looking pretty valid right now. And it's not just us speculating from the outside. You know, apparently her friends are freaking out.
I can imagine.
They're the ones who lived through all the drama with Giudice. They saw how devastated she was, and they They don't want to see her go through that again.
I completely get that.
And they're saying they don't trust Luis's business dealings.
Oof.
But you know what's wild? Teresa is seemingly unbothered by all of it.
Wait, seriously?
That's what we're hearing. She's apparently brushing it off, saying it's all just a misunderstanding and that Luis is taking care of everything.
That's quite a contrast to her friend's reaction.
Right. Like, what's the deal? Is she genuinely not worried, or is she just putting on a brave face?
Or maybe she's just really good at compartmentalizing. You know, like she's got this whole separate part of her life with Luis where she's choosing to believe everything is fine, even if there's evidence to the contrary.
That's a good point. And then you throw her daughter, Gia, into the mix, and it gets even more complicated.
How so?
Well, Gia's out there defending Luis, too.
On her podcast.
Yep. She's saying her mom has everything under control, that Luis is amazing, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, it's kind of sweet in a way. You know, like she's fiercely protective of her mom and her new family.
I know, but it's also a little naive, don't you think?
Maybe. But she's young. She probably doesn't fully grasp the seriousness of owing the IRS millions of dollars.
That's true. But that's why we're here, right?
But break it down, make sense of it all.
Exactly. And to get to the bottom of what these tax issues could really mean for Teresa and Luis, we reached out to a tax controversy attorney, someone who deals with this kind of stuff day in and day out.
Oh, good idea. What did they say?
Well, first off, they said the IRS doesn't mess around, especially when it comes to liens.
I was surprised there.
And they said that even though Teresa and Gia might be acting all nonchalant, this situation could have some really serious consequences.
Like what?
Well, for starters, there are those late payment penalties, which can be a pretty hefty percentage of what's already owed.
Right, that's on top of the original debt.
Exactly. So in their case, it could add up to tens of thousands of dollars more.
Ouch. That's not something you want to ignore.
Not at all. And the attorney said that if they don't come up with a payment plan or work out some kind of agreement with the IRS, things could get really messy.
Messy how?
Well, the IRS has the power to seize assets to cover the debt.
Oh, that's right. I've heard about that.
And they said they often go after things like bank accounts and wages first because they're relatively easy to access.
So basically, they could go after Teresa's reality TV money.
Potentially, yeah. Or any other income she has.
Wow. That's a pretty big deal.
It is. Okay, so we're going to kick things off in Salt Lake City with an update on Bronwyn Newport's husband, Todd Bradley.
Oh, interesting. What's going on with them?
So Bronwyn recently took to Instagram to share that Todd was actually diagnosed with lymphoma years ago. It wasn't something that was really like front and center on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Anyway, he's been through a lot of treatment, chemotherapy, specialized cell therapy. You know, despite any of the scrutiny their relationship has faced on screen, Bronwyn has been so vocal about how strong their bond is. She shared like this sweet screenshot of a FaceTime call with him mentioning that he was in New York for infusion treatment. I guess that's a maintenance therapy. Not as intense as chemo, but still.
Still part of the journey, though.
Yeah, definitely. And get this, even while dealing with all that and working in New York, he still made time to arrange like a surprise for her and FaceTimed her the second it arrived.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Right. And you know, this isn't the first time Bronwyn has spoken highly of Todd. Back in February, she told the New York Post about his like leadership qualities and how he's always willing to admit when he's wrong and change course. She seems to really respect that about him.
That's a pretty admirable trait in anyone, but especially in a partner.
Okay, so shifting gears now from like resilience in Salt Lake City, we're going to head over to, well, the land of Beverly Hills drama, where it looks like there's some tension brewing between Kyle Richards and Dorit Kemsley.
Oh, those two. Always something, isn't there?
Always. So there's a sneak peek out there of the reunion part 2, and Dorit is like confronting Kyle about reaching out to Dorit's estranged husband, PK, via text message.
Oh, boy.
And here's the thing. She contacted PK before she reached out to Dorit herself after the separation.
Oof.
And Dorit is not happy about it.
I can imagine.
She even implies that Kyle only texted her because Erica Jane suggested. But Kyle is, like, defending herself, of course. She insists that she did text Dorit, even though it wasn't acknowledged, and that she reached out to both of them because she genuinely cared.
But, you know, sometimes intent isn't everything, especially in these circles.
So true. And Dorit bringing up Erica's supposed prompting just adds fuel to the fire. You know, it creates this perception of, like, inauthenticity.
Definitely. And in that world, perception is often reality.
Ugh, so true. And, you know, Kyle did try to point out that Garcelle Beauvais and Sutton Strack also didn't reach out initially. It almost felt like she was trying to deflect some of the blame.
A classic reality TV tactic, right? Bringing others into the mix.
Totally. But Dorit is laser focused on the timeline of those texts. PK first, then her.
Okay, ready for a change of scenery?
Always. Where are we headed?
Let's head down south to Southern Charm territory. There's an update on Craig Conover's love life.
Ooh, spill the tea.
So word on the street is he's completely smitten with his rumored new girlfriend, Natalie Buffett.
Wait, Natalie Buffett, wasn't he with Paige DeZorbo from Summer House?
Yeah, they split a while back. But here's the thing. This isn't entirely new territory for Craig and Natalie. They apparently had a little fling back in 2019 after his relationship with Naomi Alendo ended, but before he was with Natalie Egnauer. So there's a bit of history there.
Wow.
Sources say they reconnected around New Year's Eve last year during some travels in Colorado. Seems like maybe the timing is just right this time around.
Interesting. Well, he did confirm on Watch What Happens Live that he was, quote, seeing someone and very happy. So maybe this one's got legs.
And an insider even mentioned that Craig always believes in signs and things working out if they're meant to be.
Yeah. Apparently they're taking things slow, but he's totally smitten. They've been spending time in both Charleston and New York City.
A little bi-coastal romance.
Right. Natalie's been described as low-key and travels a lot, so they're kind of doing the long-distance thing. And in case you're wondering about Paige, sources say she's unbothered by Craig's new relationship and is focusing on her career and, you know, having a fun summer.
You know, it's almost like a script at this point, right? The post-breakup thriving and unbothered narrative.
Totally.
Now, are you ready to journey to Atlanta with me? There's been a pretty significant rift in the friendship between the Real Housewives of Atlanta stars Cynthia Bailey and Kenya Moore.
What happened?
So Cynthia recently shared that she hasn't spoken to Kenya in almost a year.
Wow, that's a long time, especially for them. They were close.
I know, right? It all stems from an incident at the grand opening of Kenya's hair care spa last summer. It involved a newcomer, Brittany Eady, and things got, well, pretty messy.
Involving, like, revenge porn.
Unfortunately, yeah. There were reports that Kenya shared explicit photos of Brittany without her consent, and it led to Kenya being suspended from filming.
Yikes. That's serious stuff.
It is. And Cynthia, who was at the event to support Kenya's life dream of building her hair care empire, was really disappointed in how Kenya handled the situation.
Understandably so. I mean, it sounds like it really overshadowed what should have been a celebratory moment.
Yeah, Cynthia felt that Kenya's actions were, quote, beneath her, and that it took away from all the hard work she had put into her business.
It's interesting, though, because even though Cynthia was clearly upset, she still seems to care about Kenya.
Oh, for sure. She said she's reached out to Kenya, but is respecting her need for space. She even got emotional during the incident, telling Kenya she was better and bigger than this before leaving.
Definitely. Okay, so we're going to head back to the West Coast now for a quick update on Vanderpump. Scheana Shay has been talking about her current relationship with Lisa Vanderpump, and it sounds like things might have changed a bit.
That's interesting. They've always seemed pretty close.
I know, right? But Scheana mentioned that they don't talk too much anymore, and that Lisa usually calls when she needs something.
Oh, wow.
Right. And she even gave this example of a recent call where Lisa had a question about one of Scheana's friends who's on another one of Lisa's shows.
So it's like business first now.
It seems that way. And what's even more surprising is that Scheana, who's listed as an executive producer on The Valley, claims that Lisa isn't really that involved and was even unaware of some pretty big details, like Kristen doubts pregnancy.
Wow, that's surprising. Lisa's always had this reputation for being very hands-on with her projects.
Scheana also gave some updates on her relationships with other cast members. She recently hung out with Ariana Madix at a friend's birthday and said it was really fun. But when it came to Tom Sandoval, she claims she hasn't spoken to him in a while, which kind of contradicts some things he said recently.
The plot thickens.
Right, but she did mention watching him on The Traitors and actually enjoying the show, so there's at least some indirect connection there. All right, ready for our last stop?
Hit me with it.
We're going to wrap things up with a trip to the summer house where things get a little weird. It involves Lexi Wood and Jesse Solomon, and it's been dubbed Toegate.
Toegate. Okay, you got to tell me more.
So get this, Jesse had his toe sucked during a threesome, and Lexi was, understandably, not thrilled by this revelation.
I can imagine. Especially considering they'd been having conversations about being exclusive. Didn't even tell her he loved her the day before this whole thing came out?
Yep, the day before. Talk about mixed signals.
That's putting it mildly. And Lexi called out her castmates for, like, making light of the situation, which probably made her feel even worse.
Totally. I mean, it's a pretty humiliating situation. And Jesse did admit that his behavior was inappropriate and deceptive for not being upfront with Lexi about it right away.
But his excuse was that he wanted to create some distance between the event and telling her, especially because there were already rumors about him flirting with Ciara.
Right, but that just makes it worse, doesn't it? Like, trying to bury the truth never works out well.
No, it usually just explodes later. Honesty, even when it's tough, is almost always the better path.
Agreed. And their castmates, Ciara and Paige included, seem to agree that Jesse should have been straight with Lexi from the get-go. Lexi said she had more traditional expectations when it came to exclusivity.